Would you care to visit yet another one of life's, may I say, breathtaking, growth-producing, non-visible systemic arrangements in the electrochemical field of human intelligence? Okay, I thought you would. Well, I wasn't going to wait for you to write in. Here we go. Explanations explain things and not cause them. As I know I've suggested before, but this is so beautiful. It is so endemic to the arrangement of the human intellect, and I'll go ahead and say it, so subtle that it will damn near make your eyelids roll up and down like shades in a cheap motel. Explanations explain things, not cause them. Now, explanations, by the way, so that you can do your own, those of you who are getting good, so that you can run your own parallel, at times synonymous, if not a complete commentary, little words by explanations. I could have said demonstrations, explications, illustrations, annotations, but I didn't. So don't you forget that. Let's start off with an example. So that any of you who think that you hadn't got it, those of you that are that cheap and sissy of the brain, then you can feel like, well, hell, I'm getting even further behind. We just started. Good. So, a question. Someone asked this question. Now, I'm not going to start off in easy areas like the soft sciences or sociology or religion or anything. Let's get down to the hard. Biology, zoology. Oh, I love them. Mainly because I can pronounce them. They would ask, why is it if you take a dog out into a field, a fenced-in area, little ballpark somewhere, little league park, and you turn your dog loose, the dog will run the perimeter of the fence. Any sane, middle-class dog, right in the middle of life's canine bell curve, the dog, all of you should know. Now we could ask the question, which they have asked in the past, why does the dog do that? Why does the dog do that? And by now, someone has given the explanation, surely. If not, I'm about to, and I can't believe that they waited this long. Here's the explanation, and you can probably think about it. You want to take a few minutes and you think about yourself, that if you were asked this question, if this was the crucible as to whether you get into college or whether you get a tractor loan, that if you thought about it a second, they said, now give us, we want to know why. Why does the dog do that? The dog, you got this whole field. Why does the dog, and it's got all kinds of nice grass, and why does the dog, as soon as you let him in, this, just imagine a little ballpark down your neighborhood. The dog will run right over to the edge of the fence, no matter which way he goes, and he'll stay around the fence. And they say, why? And they'll say, put 60 seconds on the clock. And you go, You, and if not you, let's speak about humanity institutionally, they now will tell you why. What causes the dog to do that? And here it comes. Let's say, all right. Surely I'm going ahead so that it's not to embarrass you and assume that you would come up with this on your own. Due to the herd instinct, etc., of which dogs are still subject, the dog, if you will even notice, the dog is, because of previously present dogs who walked that same fence and marked off territorially, and now this dog, if you notice, he's not only your dog, not only going back and smelling, he's raising his little flank, and he's marking on top of theirs. Well, that's simple enough, right? Or if you'd like the illusion, well, if you'd like the appearance of a little more up to date, there used to be questions that they, for instance, trying to understand the complex movement of flocks of birds. You know, how is it you look up there and they're all going zoom, and then they're zoom this way and then that way. And for a long time, the experts in the field just naturally assumed that there was a lead bird, which I guess would strike most people. You think, well, something's going on, because even the formations normally there seems to be put into a kind of charge pattern. And so it would just seem, well, there's some lead bird, something going on, and the bird is directing movements, whoever's the lead bird, and the rest is what makes this. Nowadays, I was trying to give you the appearance of being a little more up to date than just examples having to do with the more basic ideas of herd instinct, with the dog marking off the territorial limits on that fence. Nowadays, they have attempted to expand, superimpose, enlarge the idea that, well, there's a bird, a lead bird somewhere in all of these flocks that in some ways communicating. Now, those of you who don't know it, there is a large, seems to be, enough that I heard about it, explanation given. In fact, they claim that they have studied films and that there is no such thing as a lead bird. And now the explanation is more, which I'm not going into myself, but is more on the basis that this is governed by the theory of chaos. Those who have been keeping up at all, that, in other words, what appears to be chaotic situations are indeed not. And they explain it a little more, but that's the basic, that which seems to be random, unrelated events, are not. So we've got two things, and I could go into other areas, obviously. Why is this man a drunken ne'er-do-well? His father used to walk around the edge of fences and piss? No. His father was a drunken ne'er-do-well and gave that poor lad mortal hell. All right. See, I didn't use those easy ones. So we got explanations, do we not? Why does a dog, you stand there, why does a dog, and you got this whole field, he's been cooped up all day, he wants to go run, you turn him loose, this whole big field, and he runs immediately. Just as soon as you come inside, right against the fence, and he stays there. Going around constantly marking it. Now here's the subtle part now. Back to where some of you thought you were lost to begin with. Now it has been explained. He is running the fence because dogs before him have been here. They ran the fence. They have marked it off, and a dog can't stand that. So he goes over there, and he's going to mark it off on top of him, and after your dog, some other. Well, there you are. There's the cause. Oh, may I interrupt? That's the cause? Yeah. I mean, we don't have time. I'm speaking, of course, now for ordinary intelligence. We don't have time to play these kind of games. Sure. You want to know the cause? That's the cause. I thought of it. Or you thought about it, but I was about to think of it. Yeah, that's the cause. Are these complex, just mind-blowing almost. I think that's zoological talk. Hundreds of birds going zzz, going all kinds of formations. And obviously there is some sort of bird communication going on. There's some kind of bird in command and leading it all. And then through the power of technology and studying films, they look at it and they come to the conclusion, there is no lead bird. I mean, you can't look at a film for a while. The theory fell apart. But wait a minute. The theory of chaos, right there. You can see it all the way from geological movements. You can see it in the weather patterns. But by God, the theory of chaos also, right there. So it's the theory of chaos, and of course you understand the way I'm using the theory of chaos, the way they use it, it's not just a theory anymore. But they still use the term. Anyway, you understand. So it would now be the theory of chaos is what causes the birds to be able to fly like that. Oh, really? That's interesting. That's the cause. We don't even have to engage, surely, in even pseudo-dramatic sarcasm. that is not the cause of why the dog is going over there and every 4 or 5 feet is lifting his leg and helping water the fence so it will grow better. You explain why he did it, but the subtle part is, if you heard that, if that was the question of the day, if that was a question for you to get promoted, to be admitted to school, to win $50, they said, what causes a dog to do that? Previous dogs, other canines coming through there and marking it off, and he can't help it. He has to do it on top of it. That's the cause. Really? I missed something. It's an explanation. But explanations are not causes. The explanation, if you want me to really be crude, the explanation does not tell you why the first dog that ever came on that field, the first dog that came on any field, did that. And there's no real trick there. We're just back to this great area that you can see it right quick and you can check with your own ordinary nervous system, the level of ordinary thinking, and go, well, all right, so what? But if you say, well, wait a minute, don't say so what. Don't you see that the mind is arranged in such a way that you take an explanation as being a cause? And I will assume, again, being the magnanimous son of a bitch that I am, that you could get some ordinary people and then go, hey, you're right. Geez, I got to go. You just can't hold on to it because you're not supposed to. There's nothing important about it. The cause of your dog is your event. You're the witness. You're the observer. You're the questioner. Your dog, and it strikes you. Why do I turn a dog loose? Any size field. We can go here in my neighborhood. We can be out of town, out of another state, and go into a field that has just any sort of boundaries marked on it, whether it be an actual chain link fence on a ball field or just rocks. You understand what a field, some enclosed area, and the dog starts running. You can almost see that there's tracks. Just the grass has been matted down, that somebody's been doing something. And he goes and he stays there. And you think, God, that's weird. Why does he do that? What causes him to do that? And then on your own you go, well, it's obvious. Because all territorial animals will mark off a territory. Especially, now if it was absolutely virgin territory and you turn an animal loose such as a dog, you got a different situation, which is not, it's neither here nor there. But it is most striking that when they immediately run and they start running the perimeter, however it's marked, and marking it themselves. And you think, why? What causes that? It's because other dogs have done it, and now he has got to he's got to exert his territorial claim if he never comes back. He don't know. He's just a dog. He has got to mark off on top of theirs. That's the cause. Oh, really? I missed it again. Of course, being silly, but you do, I'll assume, the few of you listening, that's not the cause. It's an old problem, and we're not playing philosophical mind games. But you are dealing, if I'd start off speaking philosophically or theologically, you're back to the old idea of, they used to call the question of first causes. Nobody can deal with it. Of course, religion, they got an easy way. Life had its own Krispy Kreme outfit when it first started. That you've always got that way out if you're so wired up as to go, Well, faith. But now, we're not attacking religion, and that's not the point. Don't stay there, because you can be religious and still be wired up in such a way as to try to think along ordinary, not academically speaking, but in scientific, reasonable, logical terms nowadays. And what you never see, you or somebody with a 5th grade education that's a ditch digger, what is not seen is that explanations are taken as causes. And they are not the same thing. You cannot, because you're always left with this. If you had such a subversive turn of mind, is your mind, someone else could say, well, wait a minute. That's no secret as to why a dog does that. He is doing it because dogs previously here have marked it off, and he just is helpless. His hormones make him go out there and mark on top of it. That's the cause. That's not the cause. Because then you got to say, well, wait a minute. So the guy is a drunken son of a bitch, and you're saying that the cause is his father was a drunken son of a bitch. And then you got to say, well, why did his father go around lifting up his leg around the fence? And you might say, well, I wish you wouldn't mix up these kind of parables when you start, because about the time I think I got it, and then you go. I just didn't want you to fall into a cliche, riddled, somnambulistic inclination. The sins of the fathers. It's what Western religion likes to fall back on. Or, taken to the greatest extreme, Adam. Yeah. Way back as far as you can go, everybody's father was a drunken son of a bitch, Adam. He messed up, and now we're paying for it. Now, that's easy to say. And people say, yeah. But then you forget it. Because that is not a cause, that's an explanation. But the ordinary mind is not wired up, being the polarized animal it is not wired up for what is actually, or would be actually, a conclusive run along the energy line. So, it goes like this. In any subjectively closed system, and a subjectively enclosed system is any lesser dimensioned operations extant within a larger, more complex one. So, you can't get away from that. So, in any subjectively closed system, which is what this appears to be, human life, explanations either, for tonight I'll give you ABC, which is always fair enough. Within a subjectively enclosed or subjectively closed system, a system that is an operational part of a greater system, of a three-dimensional reality inside of something of greater dimensions, 5 or 6, some other number, 3 plus. Then you have what is a subjectively enclosed system, because anybody operating at that level of intelligence, if it was 3 dimensions, let's say 3 dimensions, then to them it's a closed system. That's why you can only imagine your forefathers and everybody else, they only imagine, well, God lives up in the heavens. And of course, NASA and the government fooled us all, made us think that they sent off rockets and sent men to the moon. And then those forward-looking churches had to say, well, all right, God moved. You know, they moved paradise out somewhere close to, that's what quasars are. That's it. I never thought, that's what it is. That's the light twinkling in heaven. You know. The mind cannot get outside of the system in which it was birthed. Calcium can only recognize its mother as being what? Titanium? No. Homogenized milk. Calcium. So within a subjectively enclosed system, here we go, which this is, and if we were in a 5-dimensional, and we're aware of it, if we were in a 5-dimensional reality with a 5-dimensional intelligence, it would still be a subjectively closed system, assuming that we were still part of a larger, more complex system. So that's all I mean by a subjectively enclosed system. If you begin to understand, I just make up the term, but that is what this means, so we don't have to keep dilly-dallying around, because I know how much some of you hate dillying, and then of course he hates dallying, and I'm not too fond of it. But within a subjectively closed system, explanations, remember, we've already established, explanations in any system are not causes, they're explanations. They explain things, but they do not give causes. But within a subjectively closed system, explanations tend to either A, be taken as causes, B, act as stand-ins for unknown, non-perceived causes. They're just substitutes. They do walk-ons. Or C, in such systems, the explanations tend to become causes. Comma, parentheses. Tend to become accepted as causes. Close the parentheses. Now you can chop up, you can see the way your own intellect operates, you can see the way the world of science operates, you can see the world of man is operating on that basis, that explanations are given, and somewhere within that spectrum of A through C is how unnoticed and not untoward, not an error in a bushel full, does the human intellect take the explanations as being causes. That once you have an explanation, well, the dog does that, he is doing it because dogs before him did it. That's what causes him to do it. What else do you want? It's other dogs having already come by and marked off this territory. He has no choice. That causes him to do it. Causes him to do it. You know, how can you argue with that? The man's father was a drunk. He beat the kid mercilessly. However you say it. He beat him bad. Gave him a poor self-image. What do you expect? And now the kid is a drunk and he beats up on women and everybody else. That's what caused him to do that. How can you say no? You don't have to be a psychologist. Somewhere between dogs, if you think there's a difference, between the blind, instinctive behavior of a dog. But still, why does a dog go out there and run a fence, run a perimeter, instead of just getting out in the field and having fun? Why do he do that? What causes him? Well, what causes him is dogs have already marked it out, and he can't stand it. He doesn't think about it. It is intuitive, instinctive, and he has to go and mark on top of their marks, territorially. That's what causes him. There you are. That's an explanation. That's not a cause. Because then you got to say, well, why did the other dog do it? And then you have to fall back, if there was a canine version of the Old Testament, and say the sins of the canines, the sins of the dogs are the sins of the puppies. That they go out and mark off the edge of the fence because of what? Because their father did it. Ah. And of course, nobody but a smart ass would verbally say anything else, such as, what made his old man do that? Of course, somewhere off in the bulrushes, whatever the hell they are, you might have a revolutionist here and there, who would never say that because he knows they don't know, or they wouldn't be going along with this kind of folly up to that point. But it might suddenly strike him somewhere about, wait a minute, I have been surrounded by people who have explained damn near everything. And here I am, almost, got myself almost a good 10th grade education, about ready to start shaving. And I still don't understand what's going on. And it suddenly struck me when I asked them, why does the dog do that? Why does little Johnny, why is he a drunk? And they told me the cause. And I suddenly saw that that's not, wait a minute, that's not the, why did the dogs before this do that? And they go, kid, you're some kind of smart aleck. I just told you the cause. And you try to say, wait a minute. And then if you're the kind of revolutionist, you realize maybe you stepped into it once. Maybe you went and asked somebody that you really respected, or just whoever you're in front of, a teacher, a rabbi, a priest, your father. You went, wait a minute, all right. But I understand that, but what made Johnny's father like that? And the person looked at you and they go through, as they have to, there's no attacking them, they have to do something, and the easiest thing is a kind of dismissal to a kid. Is that, well, and you realize no one can think beyond that. If you tried to pull out an early age, it's not important, you might have thought, wait a minute, my father's dumber than I thought. Or this teacher is dumber than I thought. But then, of course, you're a revolutionist, very quickly after that, maybe by the time you could go have one fig Newton and sit down, you should be overcome with the realization that, wait a minute, It's not limited to that person. Wait a minute, there is a conspiracy. Except nobody knows it. Nobody knows what's going on, and you can't ask them. They will explain what's going on, and you say, yeah, but what causes it? And they say, I just told you. And if you tried, again, I repeat, anybody knew what they were doing by then, even if you were just 7 or 5 years old. Assuming you were Cajun. You wouldn't say anything else, but it would strike you, wait a minute. I asked you what caused it, and you told me, you gave me an explanation. You gave me an illustration. You gave me an annotation. You gave me an explication. You gave me an example, which was delightful. When you pointed out that dogs had been in that field before and peed all over the fence, marked their territory, and therefore other dogs come along and you could prove it. Let this happen. Bring out another dog and do the same thing. Now, kid, you see? And by then, you should be the point to realize there's no one I can say, all right, what made the first dog that ever lived go piss on a fence? What made the first guy ever alive be a drunken child abuser? So that since then, the landscape is littered with drunken, no good child abusers. And you say, well, why? I'm using their terms. I never called anybody drunken. And you say, why? And they explain. And you say, no, what caused it? They say, are you listening? And then you think, yes, but you're not. I didn't ask for the explanation. The first time around, I fell for it. Now, of course, I'm saying the sort of thing that if you had any indigenous insurgency in your bones and marrow, you wouldn't do this over about once. So I'm just making this up. But what you would be fulfilling the full conversation, the dialogue within yourself would be, you're not listening. And then you realize the world's not listening. Then you realize the world is not wired up to be carrying on this conversation because you say, what causes so-and-so? And somebody says, I'll be glad to tell you. The city, secondary life says, be delighted to tell you. Good question, you little nipper. Shows you got a curiosity. Tell you exactly what causes it, and they tell you. Now, of course, don't pick on anybody out there because all this also happens in here. But then you think, wait a minute. One time you might have gone for it, to speak metaphorically, if not symbolically, and you just go, all right, I hear you. But that was an explanation. That was an example. Well, I'll be bigger about it. It was an explanation. And the person says, I don't think you were listening. You asked me what caused the dog to do that. You asked me what caused Jimmy and other little kids like Jimmy to have such emotional problems, and now that he's grown, he's just a drunk. I mean, you can't seem to stop it. You asked me what caused it, I tried to tell you. You weren't around here, but I knew his old man. His old man was the biggest lush in town. I mean, serious drunk. Used to, all the time fighting, he was bad news. So what can you expect? Now, you asked me what caused it, I told you. Are you listening? Again, you wouldn't do this, but you would be, by then, surely thinking, boy, am I. But nobody else is. Because you might want to say, all right, I heard you explain it. But you didn't tell me what caused it. Which, of course, they can't. But what I'm trying to get you to see is nobody can even realize that they can't explain it, the cause. They can only explain the explain. And it's taken as the cause. Where else are you going to go? The only place you can go is into that kind of vague mythical fairyland normally left to religion of saying, well, it's the sins of the fathers. Because you cannot ask, well, wait a minute, what made Johnny's father like that? Would you tell me that? Now, if anybody in life, that is, if life itself, would slow down enough at the ordinary level to put up with this crap, it might say, well, that's funny you asked me that. It's before my time, but my father, your grandfather, now that you mentioned, I've forgotten about it because I never saw him, but Johnny's old man, he got, as a matter of fact, he was put to death. He not only was a drunk, he killed 2 people. I was about 1905 or so before we moved to this part of the country. His father was supposed to have been the kind of person that Jesse James's mother, as a kid, showed him pictures of this guy and said, straighten up. And it used to... You feel like you're almost on the right track, correct? That, wait a minute, aha. So little Jimmy is bad news, drunk, real depressed, poor self-image. But it turns out that his father was a town drunk, real troublemaker, and you told me that was what caused Jimmy to be that way. And I said, well, wait a minute, that explains from one view why, but what caused his father? And now you come up that you recall that Jimmy's grandfather was an even bigger drunk. And then whoever you're asking goes, yes. Now, does that finally cover it for you? I don't have to go any further, do I? Life would hardly put up with that. But if you had any inclination, if you were already wired up, that you were trying to move across the wild frontier, that you're not going to be limited to what other people think, then you realize this is going nowhere. Because if you're really stupid, which you wouldn't have gone that far, but if you're really stupid, then you got to do what? You got to say, some of you are talking to your dad, talking to life. You got to say, all right, I appreciate you going to all that trouble. You're going to hate me, but what caused Jimmy's grandfather to be that way? You're asking for it. I mean, life's going to give you a backhand. Nobody does that. Not that they should. It doesn't do anything. But the thing is, for this kind of attempted neural revolution of yourself, is to realize that no one does do that. Life is not arranged to do that, but that no one notices it. And what are given as causes are mere explanations. And that explanations are not causes. They're not. You could say that one of the prime functions of facts is to fill in the unanswered question of causes. What else do facts do? In the sense we have discussed them of late. Remember man's world of acts and facts. One of the prime uses of facts is to take this, whether it be direct or tacit, it's always hanging around this question of causes. What causes things? And part of the prime demand function of facts is to fill in this, because a real answer in regards to the question of causes, I fear to tell you at city level, is not forthcoming. It's not that you missed the bus. It's not that you got in late and everybody else found out what caused it and you went, oh, Jesus, man, you know what? No. In this dimension, they're not ever going to call it that bus about now on track 7 causes. And everybody run out and go, well, hey, now we'll get it. No. Oh, sometimes they call it that, but you go out and it's going to Knoxville just like every other explanation. It's not going to causes. And so facts fill in this unanswered, always unanswered, impossible to be answered within the system itself, because it always ends up in a form of self-reference. And so any real response to the question of causes, you know what I mean, what causes, what's going on, there is no answer forthcoming. It's not possible. And so part of the prime function of facts is to stand in for it. It's like everybody wants to know, what causes life to be like it is? You go, and you look around, and suddenly, where this gap was up there on the stage, it was supposed to have been filled in by the actor, the activity of causes. You go, oh, Jesus. Maybe it takes you a few years, you go to school, read some books, you go, take some drugs, and you look up, and what's happened, because you don't know any better. You got nowhere else to, can't complain to equity. Suddenly, facts jump in, and they're standing there. And you could be this crude, people are, and say, oh, are you the causes? He goes, yes. When I'm telling you, he's explanations, or she, or it. But you say, oh, causes, we were wondering where you were. Oh, I was just a little late. Yeah. All right, let's press on here with it. Who's going to say no? No one's ever seen a cause. You don't know if that's not a cause. Because until I started playing around with some people's minds, to say, what causes a dog to do that? You thought you knew. Because other dogs did it. Oh. What causes little Jimmy to be like he is? Because of what his father is. Ah. What causes these flocks to be able to just, and they got no intelligence that we know of. They don't talk, or at least not in malleable language. And they say, and they go through all these complex flights. What causes them to do that? And I even showed you a little progress within your lifetime. It went from, well, there's a lead bird somewhere in all of these flights that's in some way communicating and leading this whole activity, all the way to that, to something that sounds much more, much more scientific and up to friggin' date. It's not just that. There might be some kind of little activity of them in there. The theory of chaos explains this. There's the cause. An explanation is not a cause. Yes, I can almost see that once you go through all this. Yeah, but wait till the tape's over. Just turn your head for a second. And you got nowhere else to look. You look back, and what you thought was the cause, I'm going to suggest to you now, the role has been taken over by Mr. or Ms. Explanation. You look back and you think, is that what I was seeing a few minutes ago? And they stand there. And you got nobody to complain to. You can't say, wait a minute, show me your credentials. Which is a risky thing to ask of anybody to start with. You wouldn't know their credentials if they had any. They say, well, I'll tell you my credentials. My credentials is the dog is marking off territory around the fence. He stays around the fence because dogs before him have been here. Okay, I guess you'll do. Because what are you going to compare it to? All right, I'll answer. Nothing. You understand? What can you compare it to? You went that way. Nothing. You can ask the person playing causes, are you sure you belong here? No matter what they say, what are you going to do? Are you sure that the explanation you gave me is the cause? Behind the tacit part of all explanations is, if you don't like it, can you do better? And the answer is no. So how can you try and throw them out? Explanations are these stand-ins for causes, but they are taken to be all the way from a stand-in to actually becoming the accepted cause. And there is no way that the ordinary mind can differentiate. Once you grasp and can hold on to this, then may I suggest that it's impossible to simultaneously hold on with any hostility toward foreign facts, other people's ideas. Once you understand that everybody else's ideas, that all people's explanations as to why they do what they do, why they think the world operates like it does, what political system they believe should be, whatever it is, once you understand that those explanations, no one's is intended to explain anything, then how can you be mad? But of course, you're ordinary, you can be downright mad. I just heard, there's a guy over here, he says that he thinks that we're to take, he's got a new idea. He says that we're to take the middle class here, strip them down, take away all their money, make them the poor, and divide it among the upper classes and the lower classes. He says, never been tried, let's do that. I'm saying, that is the most stupid thing. And this guy says, yeah, but wait a minute, it may sound stupid, but we've tried the other ways. We've tried soaking the rich, we've tried taking it from the poor, and it's inequities abound in the fiscal arrangements of life. And you go, yeah? But that idea of yours, that explanation about that this would cure it all, that's nuts. That's dangerous. It's just an explanation. What do you want? Yeah, but that kind of shit's dangerous. I mean, what if that caught on? It's not intended to catch on. What's it going to catch on to? When you realize, when I said foreign facts, any, obviously, ill-timed, ill-founded, misconstrued skewed opinions, sophisms of other people, just the stupidity of the world. Once you understand, and people do not, of course, you understand this, they don't start to be stupid. It's just that you hear them talk and they begin to explain the way life should be. They explain the problems of life as it is. They explain what would improve life. They explain why people do not act. They explain all this. But once you understand that explanations are not intended to explain anything, how can you be mad? What's there to react to? Except the ordinary level, you do realize that's not true as soon as you hear facts that are foreign. I don't mean in a xenophobic sense, but just facts, that is, explanations of life, theories. Facts as opposed to acts. Once you hear facts that are not yours, then everyone as you're supposed to. It's like, well, wait a minute. And based upon how close it begins to trample on your own little field, you can get very upset. You can take verbal umbrage, physical exception to it. But what if you get a clear view that no one's explanation, from the world's maniacs to people down the street with a different religion, a different economic philosophy, just somebody staying next to you at a bus station, or bus stop, and they make some comment about the nature of life, and you think, Jesus Christ, I'm surrounded by idiots. No, you're not. You're surrounded by explanations. Yeah, but wait a minute. This kind of stuff is serious. Give me a break. What do you mean it's serious? It would be serious if these were actual causes. These people's explanations as their theories, their ideas, if they were actually serious, if they were going somewhere, then I'll agree with you if that makes you feel better. Yes, this is dangerous. But they're not intended to do anything except stand in for causes. Who's going to get mad at an understudy? Well, because I know there are all sorts of people with a very low theatrical, intellectual threshold. But you take it upon yourself until we meet again. Bring the music up. We'll meet again. To consider you getting mad at understudies. You're getting mad at the world's explanations when they're not intended to do anything. Ciao.